On this inside line, I'm going to be showing you one of the coolest places to wheel in the Southeast, along with giving you an update on some of the new modifications I've done to my 2020 Jeep Gladiator. All right, let's get to it. Windrock Off-Road Park is a 73,000 acre privately owned wheeler's paradise. It's located in Oliver Springs, Tennessee, which for me is roughly 500 miles west of my house in Wilmington, North Carolina. Aside from wanting to get out and wheel, this trip would serve as a shakedown run for a few of the recent modifications I made to my 2020 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. The biggest of which being a PSC Motorsports hydraulic assist steering system. For those interested, yes, I will have a full detailed install and review of this kit coming to the channel soon. If you've never been to Windrock, there are a few things worth noting. First off, be sure to download the Park app on your phone. This will give you great detailed information about where the trails are and some of the highlights to see. There are over 70 trails on this map system, and this will help tremendously with keeping you on the right path. Another big thing to note is that Windrock offers a host of on-site lodging options. Everything from a basic spot for you to set up a tent to fully furnished cabins. There are also trailer and RV hookups. I personally like the cabins and have always found them to be clean and very convenient. They are a little bit more expensive than the nearby hotels, but you are a stone's throw away from the first trail, so I think it's worth it. Now, the park rates the vehicle trails from easy to most difficult, with each having a color indicator on the map. A stock 4x4 with a good set of off-road oriented tires and decent ground clearance can navigate the green trails without issue. From there, things get a little bit more serious, with even some of the moderate trails having some challenges that will require skilled driving regardless of the vehicle configuration. The difficult trails are just that and usher in the possibility of body damage. In my opinion, the most difficult trails are reserved for dedicated trail rigs and is not something I'm interested in taking on with my Gladiator. I had not been to Windrock in a few years, so I decided to start off my adventure with a trail I was a bit more familiar with, which is Trail 16. It's a difficult rated trail, and it also happens to be a Jeep Badge of Honor trail. This trail is an absolute blast, but be aware that it can be hard on your Jeep's body. This is mostly due to the fact that there are a lot of deep trenches and off-camber spots that you must drop into. There aren't a lot of bypasses here. It's worth noting that my Gladiator is running Dynatrac ProRock XD 60 axles, which are 72.5 inches wide. These are much wider than stock and paired with a set of trail-ready beadlocks with 5.5 inches of back spacing. For tires, I'm running a 40 by 1350 Nitto Trail Grappler. Now, the good thing about this is it places the tire a fair amount outside past my fender flare, which not only keeps the Jeep very stable, but really helped in Windrock to prevent the body from leaning into the walls of the trail. Trail 16 isn't necessarily non-stop challenges, but is a good mix of rock and mud that will keep you on your toes, mixed in with some really cool elevation. Now, my Gladiator isn't a compact wheeler by any means, but I never felt that it was too large for the trail. Yes, you're going to scrape the belly and the hitch a good little bit, but nothing that was, I would say, a problem. Some of the more exciting aspects of the trail you'll find happen on the longer downhill sections. Keep in mind, I'm on a 40-inch tall tire, and these ruts were swallowing up my treads like I was on stock pizza cutters. For those up for a quick hike, there is a cool added bonus on this trail with a waterfall. Now, it's very well marked, so it's easy to find, but you can't take your vehicle directly to it. It makes for a nice lunch break, and it's a short hike right off the side of the Trail 16. The end of Trail 16 is really where things get more difficult. There's a few series of rock ledges that you'll need to navigate toward the exit, and for my low and long Gladiator, I couldn't find the right line under my own power, and after banging my frame rails and stock rocker guards for a good bit, I finally decided to make use of my Rugged Ridge Trekker 12.5 winch. As you can see, there were a few sketchy movements pulling it up under power and driving a good bit. It's just the wheelbase of this thing sometimes puts you in an undesirable line choice, but thankfully it is a wide and very stable Jeep, and I had a good recovery tool to get me up the trail. The big thing to note here, I think if you're a Gladiator, is that this is a great time to be thankful that you have a two-piece rear drive line. Now, I have an aftermarket two-piece shaft from JE Reel, and I'm almost certain that if it was a single piece style drive shaft, I would have destroyed it climbing up this big ledge. So two-piece for the win for sure here. Now, once I navigated past this obstacle with the ledges, there's one more very steep climb, and while there are a few options off to the right and left, neither look to be accommodating for the size of my Gladiator. So I tried a few full throttle attempts to get it up, but unfortunately the belly kept bottoming out and I had to pull cable once again. Exiting Trail 16, we cruised over to a more scenic trail I've been meaning to get on, and this was Trail 51. It's also known as Panther Rock. It's another Badge of Honor Jeep trail, but this one is rated moderate. Our plan was to hit the entire trail, but when we got to the start, we found they were doing some land clearing and the entrance wasn't passable. So we had to double back through another moderate trail and actually go up the back side of what was probably the exit of the trail. We still got to do a good chunk of it, and got to the big payoff, which is the big Panther Rock that you can go and flex your Jeep out on, and you've got this really cool overlook. It's sort of like the, I don't know, East Coast version of Top of the World, maybe. I don't know. It's just a cool little overlook, and the trail itself isn't terribly difficult. Lots of mud and rock. I mean, that's just sort of the theme of this place with elevation changes, and thankfully it wasn't raining. I imagine a good rainstorm here, that clay would just be a nightmare, but this wasn't a tough day for that. And it's really worth mentioning that so many of these trails are fun and interesting, for me at least, because they're so scenic. I grew up in the coastal plains, so I guess I'm still impressed by elevation and being in the mountains, and you know, Windrock is just a visually impactful place to go and check out. Now, the next morning we'd leave the park and head west from Oliver Springs to go explore the Nemo Tunnel. It's about a 30-minute drive, and I'll put a link on the screen for those of you interested in learning more about what the Nemo Tunnel is. But either way, we spent a few hours kind of outside of the park, and then once we made it back, we decided let's go ahead and hit some more trails. Since we'd already driven the two other Badge of Honor trails, I figured why not go ahead and do the last one at Windrock, which is Trail 26. This isn't a super difficult trail. It's a moderate. It's got some fun rockline sections with a mix of climbs. One of the things that's really neat about it is that at the end of the trail, you do this creek crossing over to Trail 27, and it has a cool place you can kick back and eat lunch, and it's really nice for that. From there, we finished up Trail 27, then hit G6 to 83, then off to Trail 22. And honestly, until you're there, these will all just seem like a bunch of numbers. And what you really need to know is these are all moderate trails, which were a lot of fun. They weren't a ton of challenge for my Gladiator on 40s, but I still had a really good time. Now, I wish I could have done a few more difficult trails, but given the fact that I had a little bit of a winch issue going on and I was solo, I decided to play it safe and stick to the moderate trails. And I really enjoyed it. I don't feel like I shortchanged myself by just doing one difficult trail and the rest moderate. I still had a really good time, and it was still challenging and fun enough that it was definitely worth the trip. Now, one of the other mods that I was sort of testing on my Jeep is I just swapped out to a longer set of Fox 2.0 IFP, which is internal floating piston shocks from JKS Manufacturing. These are designed to work with my 3-inch JKS lift and provide 2 more inches of additional down travel, which was really nice to have. If you are planning on going to Windrock, I would highly recommend having a mud terrain under your vehicle. I personally like the Trail Grappler. You know, these are 40s, it's a load range C tire. These things just conform so well and they ride really nice. I never had an issue with grip in the wet rocks, and they cleaned out very well in the mud, which this Tennessee clay is definitely tough to get out from in between the tread. These tires I still have not balanced. I'm well into 8 months of having them under my Gladiator, and they roll smooth and incredibly quiet. You know, I'm a big fan of the Trail Grappler. I think it's one of the few tires that you can get that is this tall, and you don't have to have a bunch of compromise, whether you're going with a tire that's more on-road friendly and then it doesn't work as well off-road, which I think is a terrible, you know, way to go, especially for a 40-inch tall tire. But obviously, if you end up going with something that's like crazy aggressive, then you end up sacrificing so much ride quality on road. This, I really feel like, is a great balance, and given how much I do drive this thing on the street, I've been very happy with the Trail Grappler in general. Now, I'm going to save my full steering review for a later video, but I will say that it was well worth the effort, and it is a lot of effort to do this type of steering kit. I am blown away with this thing on the highway. No dead spots. It just really, overall package wise, I'm stoked on it. So hopefully you guys found this video informative. I really enjoyed going up there and wheeling. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video and you're liking this content, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps. And as always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the trail soon. Take care.